Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It's my pleasure to have Brandon Yosha with us. Brandon is a trial lawyer and co-owner and partner at Yosha Law. He's also a former college football player. Brandon was the youngest ever listed in Best Lawyers in America, Ones to Watch, and he was also recognized in Super Lawyers, Rising Stars, representing the top 2.5% of lawyers under the age of 41 in Indiana. He won a jury verdict for $20 million against an Indiana power company just 5 weeks out of law school. He's author of the upcoming book, From Running Back to Giving Back. And Brandon's also a client. Brandon, it's so great to have you on the show.
Great to see you, Stephan. Thank you for having me.
So we want to make this a bit of a case study and just kind of put everything out there, what was not working, what was working, what the situation was that needed to be solved, and some of the most effective things that helped take you to a new level in your online presence. So maybe just if we could start by a little bit of a background on what it is that a personal injury law firm is most interested in, like the key performance indicators and how competitive it is out there. Just kind of give us a bit of the landscape that you're operating in online.
Yeah, it's very competitive. Indianapolis is a major metropolitan city in America, and I think it's the 20th largest city in America, and it's competitive to rank highly for those coveted keywords: car accident lawyer, personal injury lawyer, slip and fall lawyer, truck accident lawyer, and there's only, as you know, so many spots, and uh, it's competitive, and it's gotten more competitive over the past, I would say, even 4 or 5 years. A lot of the firms that traditionally would advertise through television have transitioned to digital marketing. And I mean, even if you see someone, you know this, if you see a law firm on television, you're still going to Google car accident lawyer after you've seen that firm on television. So you still have a chance to be seen before someone makes that final decision. So it's very important for personal injury lawyers, and it's just essential to your success.
Now you have a bit of a leg up because you've learned from one of the best marketers on the planet. So you want to share a bit about that?
Yeah. I think you're referring to my cousin, uh, Jay Abraham, who is the godfather of marketing, and uh, just amazing mentor and friend and family member. And he's helped me every step of the way. He's very close with my father. Um, my grandfather's brother was Jay's dad. So it's very close. And our family came from Monastir in North Macedonia, came to America, and my grandpa started a grocery store in downtown Indianapolis, and uh, my cousin Jay, his dad, was just made an honest living, and then my dad became a very successful trial lawyer, and Jay became Jay Abraham. um, and that they are both amazing people, and there's a reason why they've succeeded. But Jay is, I mean, he's world renowned. No one in our family aside from Jay is world renowned. I mean, my dad has national recognitions, but he isn't world renowned. I mean, Jay's in China 2 months out of the year. He's speaking all over the world, and he was so gracious to spend time with me, and I got the family discount of $0. It's usually 50,000 or 100,000 an hour. But he would always work with me gratis, and we talked about preeminence, and we talked about how preeminence isn't just about being the best at what you do. It's about being the trusted advisor in your particular industry and being the go-to for the service that you provide, and there being no number two. um,
Yeah, and I
and
love the aspect of his preeminence principle where if your prospect is better served by being sent to your competitor, it's your obligation
it's your
to
duty.
do so, and that's just the right thing to do. It's not just an obligation; it's just the moral, ethical thing to do. And what a great principle to put out there in the world.
Right, and to never oversell.
Yeah.
Yeah. um, so we talked about, the different ways to elevate um, our presence online and throughout the state. And obviously, he harped on word of mouth and referrals and making sure you're getting business from your past clients. But he also talked about SEO, and then he talked about Stephan Spencer, who wrote the book on SEO and is the go-to in the world. He is world renowned for SEO, and he said, "Brandon, this is who you need to study, and when the time's right, I'll introduce you, and and you can meet with them." So for about a year, I worked with an agency, and I don't want to disparage them. They did a decent job, but there was a lot of shortcuts that they took, and it wasn't uh, it wasn't something that was sustainable in the long term. It was short term gains, and it wasn't done the way that we do things now. And I was looking for a new agency, or I was looking for a partner. I didn't have a partner. I had a company that um, was working on our behalf and getting us modest results. And Jay had a email that he pushed where he was doing a 5 hour long segment with Stephan Spencer, the the author of SEO. And I took that opportunity, and I sent you an email beforehand. And I said, "Hey, here's our website. If you want to analyze it during the session, that'd be great." And you were gracious enough to go through before the segment and analyze our site. And then I think it was probably the second website of the many that you analyzed live that day was ours. And it was extremely informative, and I knew that we needed to partner because I was getting shortchanged. And I met with you about 2 days later, and the rest is history. We've been together for about a year now, and I truly view you as my partner
Likewise, and
friend.
yeah, likewise. It's such a pleasure, such a gift to work with you and assist you and your team. And one thing I learned from a class that has nothing to do with business, um, it was a spiritual class, but I learned this concept that you don't have clients, you have your assigned group. So if you think about that, if you're destined to work with certain people, certain companies, organizations, and change their destiny, it makes total sense that you would um, not need to do the Gary V kind of hustle to bring them in, but be more of I don't know, just more cool about it and just work with God and allow this to happen and not get in your own way.
Mhm.
It feels like that's what's happening more and more in my life, in my business, and so forth. Feels like I know that God is my business partner. I know that I'm being looked after. I know that synchronicities are happening right and left, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's just you're such an important person in my business and my life and my mission. And I just knew I had to have you on this podcast to talk about this because it's not typical that in an SEO company you have clients with this kind of a relationship where it feels like we're part of each other's soul family. And it
Mhm.
sounds corny probably to some of our listeners, but I just wanted to put that out there. If it's something that's meant to be, it will
Mhm.
happen. I mean, unless you totally uh, sabotage yourself, it's going to happen. And our um, uh, shared mission together of helping people, it's just I'm helping amplify your mission and vice versa. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So I just wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I think we share the same mission of making the world a better place. And when you have a partner, a strategic partner who's also a friend and a mentor, um, that shares that same goal of making the world a better place, I mean, you're destined to do great things.
Yeah.
And I truly want to garner more clients and garner an even uh, stronger presence in the SEO world because I want to help more people. And just like you, I truly believe that you want to help as many people as you can with your knowledge and your expertise, which is second to none in your field. And it's been a great partnership.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about some of these um, world changing, uh, kind of helping humanity type of initiatives that you're working on, such as Nora's Law, such as the book, and just
Mhm.
get a sense of how you're not the typical uh, personal
Ambulance
injury
chaser.
lawyer. Yeah, I'm not going to use any kind of disparaging terminology that you hear
I
in the
will.
out there in the world, but it's like it's there's a lot of um, maybe prejudice, maybe it's just assumptions that people make about lawyers that get paid by the the winning of the
Thank
case, and it's contingency, so
you.
everything's at risk. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it doesn't help. Certainly doesn't help when you see lawyers, personal injury lawyers, standing on top of a truck and waving a magic wand and a settlement check magically appearing. And it doesn't help when you say, "Call me. It's just that easy. Um, I'll get you money fast." That those types of advertisements, they don't help our profession. And Jay's told me this. He said, "Brandon, you need to distinguish yourself and separate yourself from that crowd as quickly as you can." My dad was in Best Lawyers in America every year since 1983, so he did that. But he's a dinosaur. He hasn't been in practice for about 10 years now. I mean, he works sparingly on cases, so we really had to reestablish our brand, our our reputation, and we quickly realized that we needed to inform people inform people of the difference between a lawyer who's on TV waving a magic wand versus the lawyer who's in the courtroom trying cases and getting in front of a jury and not settling cheap and not settling quick and not being a part of a settlement mill, because the insurance industry, that's honestly what they want, is they want the lawyer that's willing to settle quickly and to burn and churn. They don't want the lawyer that's willing to go the distance for the client.
Yeah, that's a
And
very important distinction that a lot of lawyers and law firms out there are, as you said, settlement mills, because that's the most cost-effective approach for them, but it
mm,
doesn't get the best outcome for the victim.
that goes back to preeminence as
Yeah.
well. Yeah. You're not serving the client's needs. You're not even coming close to making the client whole by settling very early on into the case. And that was um, something that we focused on early in our brand script that you and I worked on, and telling our story of why us.
Right. And we'll get to the brand script in a minute, but let's talk a little bit about some of the things that are over and above a even atypical law firm that just goes the extra mile for the client, goes to trial much more often. Like you're trying to put through uh, a change in the Indiana law, and you've got a book that's coming out soon. Like, let's talk a bit about how you're really distinguishing
Mhm.
yourself by doing good out in there in the world.
Yeah. So I believe as a lawyer, you're in a position to effectuate change. And when you see an injustice or you see um, a law that you disagree with, that you think is unfair or unjust, you have a duty to take measures to change that law.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a client who you truly care about, who you love, and who you see um, yourself in, and who you relate with on a human level, you are even more compelled to effectuate change when that person's been the one that's affected by the law. We have you were referring to Nora's law. We have a client. Her name is Lindsay Owens. She called me in January of this year and was in a car crash, and her daughter was in the back seat. Her name is Nora, and their car broke down on the highway, and she got over as far as she could into the left lane. Most of her vehicle was in the emergency exit lane on the left. It's a 2-lane road headed north, and for about 10 minutes, cars are going by safely and moving over. Um, and then a truck is going about 78 miles an hour at impact, um, and never once applied his brakes, strikes the back of Lindsay's car, and Nora's in the back seat, and she's in the back right. And if you see the photos, um, the car flipped 6 times, and the entire right half of the car was missing. And Nora was hanging upside down, and she was purple and blue in the face. And Lindsay, as soon as she regains consciousness, she looks back and sees uh, Nora, her baby girl, her 3-year-old girl, who was just a few weeks shy of her 4th birthday, who was the love of her life, um, gasping for her final few breaths on this earth. I mean, if that doesn't light a fire inside of you when you hear that story, then you're not a human being. Um, and I heard that story, and I told her, I said, Lindsay, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to do something about this. And then I met with Jory, Nora's father, and I told Jory the same thing. I said, Jory, I'm going to do something about this. Because if that was a cop, or if that was a ambulance or a fire truck, and they got hit on an emergency exit lane, at least in the state of Indiana, if they got hit and they died or sustained a catastrophic injury, it would be a level 6 felony and an automatic 2-year suspension of your license. When it's a non-emergency vehicle, or when it's a 3-year-old beautiful innocent little girl in the backseat of a car in an emergency exit lane, it's not even an infraction. And that is what I'm determined to change. And we have state senators, state representatives that we've spoke with, and we've made great efforts and progress in effectuating Nora's Law. And I believe that we'll be able to pass it by 2024. It's recently just been passed in Maryland. So all vehicles, not just emergency vehicles, are protected in Maryland. And that was passed in October of this year. And that is one of our strategies to the legislature. Is Maryland just did this. They just made their roads much safer, and Indiana can do the same, and we need to protect the next Nora Owens. But yeah, I mean I'm not worried about I'm not the ambulance chaser. That's not what gets me up in the morning. Nora and her legacy is what gets me up in the morning in those types of cases. I've showed you this before, but I keep a pair of Nora's socks in my office desk drawer. I'm in my house now, but I look at it. I look at her socks once a week, and it reminds me why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I'm appearing on television and talking about Nora's Law, why I'm writing a book that's partially dedicated to Nora's Law, because I see my family. I see if I'm not a parent yet, but I know I will be. And when I envision my 3-year-old daughter in the back seat, helpless and afraid, shivering on the side of the road, in January, when my car broke down, and I feel helpless too, and I can't get out because I know that they tell you to stay in the car, And minutes later, I get hit by a truck going 78 miles an hour at impact on its way to work, and my car flips 6 times with my daughter in the back seat. I know how I would feel. I can't imagine how she must feel. But that's what gets me up in the morning. So that was a long-winded answer.
Yeah, I recently watched a video about the Mensch of Malden Mills. Have you heard of this guy? Beautiful soul, beautiful, righteous man, Aaron Feuerstein. It was back in the 80s. His factory, which was dating back to the early 1900s, Malden Mills, a family textile business. It caught fire just a couple weeks before Christmas. It was actually 1995, yeah. And the whole factory was burned down to the ground. There were thousands of workers reliant on the factory and the company for their livelihood. He could have taken the very large insurance check of hundreds of millions of dollars and retired, or rebuilt a new factory, but not in Massachusetts, instead somewhere down south, maybe Mexico, where it would have been much cheaper labor and much more profitable for him. But he didn't. He paid all of his workers for 3 months, and he rebuilt the factory, and took almost a year. 80% of his workforce came back to work for him, and they treated him like a hero, um, like family. Their productivity went up 40%, just as a thank you that that he took care of them. And yeah, he got lots of news coverage back in the 90s for doing this. Got on 60 Minutes and everything, but then for 25 years, nothing. Didn't do any interviews or anything after that. Uh, so shortly before he died at age 95, this guy interviewed um, Aaron, and I watched that video, and it was really touching.
Mhm.
One of the things that really stuck out for me from that interview was, I don't remember the Hebrew that he said, but the translation was basically Aaron was saying that he learned from his faith that if there is a moral vacuum, it is your duty to step in and be a mensch.
Mm.
And so he could have done something good by rebuilding a factory somewhere else that was more profitable. He could have, that's better than just taking the money and retiring. He could have rebuilt in the area that it had occupied before, but not paid all these workers through the holidays and several months after. Like, okay, you guys are going to have to figure out what you're going to do for the next time period until we can hopefully rehire you. He could have done that,
It's beautiful.
but he didn't. He went the extra mile and then the extra mile on top of that, because that's the right thing. And when you represent uh, the client, the victim, and it's not just about getting them the best settlement, it's about doing right in the world. Like, hey, let's turn this into a law and save some lives in the future. That's a mensch.
Mhm. No, thank you for sharing that. I wasn't familiar with that story, but it's also to the client, just like it was for the worker. I'm sure to the client, they appreciate it more,
Hmm.
um, because they. It's not really about the money for Lindsay and Jory. It's about their daughter's legacy,
Yeah.
and they don't want anyone to hurt like they hurt, and it can be avoided. It's not a law. It's not in the conscience of our society, at least in Indiana, and it's not something we're aware of. And I see every single day when I drive on the roads a non-emergency vehicle in an emergency lane with its hazards on, and people just don't even slow down. Just keep on going. Don't even attempt to move over when they're in a two-lane road. Um, but I hope that's going to change. And when I work with someone like you, I have the ability to effectuate change, and that's just another benefit to having the right partners, and the right team assembled.
Mm.
So,
I believe that we all have an incredible ripple effect that we put out into the world that even spans universes, in the multiverse. I believe that with every fiber of my being, that our thoughts, words, and deeds have an immense impact,
mhm.
much more than we'll realize until we're we're done with this life. And so, um, yeah, just be a mensch. Just be a mensch. So let's talk about the brand script and how that fits into the redesign, how that all fits into your preeminence and positioning and the reach, so that you can make the impact. Because that wasn't something that you were necessarily signing up for. You didn't even know that you needed or wanted
No,
when we started
very
working
quickly.
together.
Yeah. Well, the results speak for themselves. Um, but yeah, we looked at our site, and there was just so much cookie cutter vanilla content, and none of it was remarkable. None of our content was truly remarkable. And that was something that you harped on me, and drilled into me was, I mean, you can't put together, um, you know, hundreds of pages and thousands of words and keyword stuff if it's not remarkable content, if it's not content that's truly serving someone, and it's not engaging content, and it's not meaningful content. And that was a huge miss with the former SEO agency we were with. And you opened my eyes to it. And once we started writing meaningful content and engaging content, content that could truly help someone by reading, um, we took off, and we took off pretty quick. But before we got there, before we started writing meaningful content, we took the time to do a brand script together. And basically, what the brand script involved was understanding who the villain is, and uh, who the client is, and how you can serve that client, and making it really about what the client wants, not what you provide.
Yeah.
Um,
So the client is the hero, and you're
exactly.
just the guide. You're Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're not Luke Skywalker. Your visitor, your prospective client is Luke Skywalker, but they have not yet gotten the call to arms, the call to action to do so yet. And
Right.
you're
So,
helpful in that way of getting them into that heroic
mhm,
position and to do what needs to be done.
facilitators. Yeah. And if you look at our old site, it was all about the attorneys in our firm. It was had nothing to do with the client and what they were going through. And it was keyword stuff, and it was vanilla. But when you look at our site now, I think you would think, I hope you would think that it's almost all about the client and what the client is going through, and how they can be the hero,
Mhm.
and how they can prevail against the villain.
Yep.
And
And just
that took some time.
to give credit where credit's due, this concept of a brand script comes from the book Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller.
Mhm.
And it's a fantastic book, fantastic framework that he provides, the SB7 Story
Mhm.
Brand SB7 framework. And so we were applying that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that was very important, and we're both perfectionists, and we both really get stuck into every single sentence and every word, and we made sure that we told the story right. And that's something that's unique, because the former SEO agency I was with, it was like, what's your login information? What's your WP Engine login? What's your WordPress login? We'll take it from here. With you, I was hiring you, and you were putting me to work, and having me do the things that I was accustomed to never really doing. Um, but I'm so thankful that you did, because um, even 3 months after we did that, we reaped so much, so much reward by getting so many new clients. And now, a year later, I mean, we are at the very top for our practice area and our geographic.
Yeah, and the KPI for success in your industry is signed cases, number of signed cases per month, from whatever the marketing channel is, and you're like at just about at all-time records, right?
Yeah, just this month we are at 16 signed cases, and it's December 22nd, so we still have about 9 days. Um,
Wow,
but
that's outstanding.
uh,
That's a big deal.
yeah, and every case is it has to meet a certain criteria, um, and they're all good quality cases where people need our help, and we're excited to be able to assist so many people every single month. So before I came into the firm and realized that we needed an entire revamp, I think on the year we signed, this was in 2018, on the year, our firm signed 12 motor vehicle accident cases on the whole year.
Mhm.
Just this month in December, we've signed 12 motor vehicle accident cases.
Wow.
And the other four are premise liability cases. But and that's just in 1 month. So we we have essentially outperformed an entire year of of case intake in 1 month,
Hmm.
and that's a credit to you and your team and your expertise and your amazing guidance. And it's just been a pleasure seeing the growth, and it's consistent, and it's not that what I was getting at earlier was our success truly felt like it was cutting corners and was um, short-term success, but this is long-term success. And when you take the time to do a brand script, you take the time to redesign your website and have a site that has strong call to action and strong conversion rates and strong um, uh, view time, you're you're going to see long-term success, sustainable success, and there's no better marketing tool, at least for my industry, I think for most industries, than online marketing
Yeah.
and SEO. And if you have a sustainable channel or a sustainable median for people to find you, you're that there's no better investment.
Agreed. Agreed. And so you didn't think that you were signing up to get a website redesign and a brand script and everything. You thought I just need SEO services because I know there's more out there for us. That there's more opportunity that we're not seizing. And then I talked you into a complete site redesign with conversion optimization. You even have a new logo.
Mm-hmm. Yep. New everything. New slogan. Everything. Choose wisely. Choose Yosha. With a new logo, and it's all about the client.
Hmm.
And it's in my humble opinion, I think it's the best personal injury website in America.
It could very well
And
be. It could very well be.
I think, well, at least from a design perspective. And you introduced me to Studio One. You've introduced me to so many. Before I get to Studio One, you've introduced me to so many people, and that's what I love about you is you truly um, want to open doors for the people that are in your life, and you have no problem doing that. Jay has no problem doing that either. And you've opened so many doors for me, whether it be working with Roger Love, whether it be working with Savvy Copy on some things, whether it be working with Studio One, whether it be working with a co-writer of my book. You have opened so many doors, but one door that you opened that was a very important door was Greg Morales with Studio One, and we met with him, and I I was so impressed on that call with him. I said, "You're hired." I said, if Stephan recommends you, um, that's enough for me. But after what you've just told me and what you've presented to me and what you told me you can fix, you're hired." So we got to work on the redesign immediately, and um, I couldn't be more pleased with how it turned out. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. I mean, this we invested a lot of time and thought into how we wanted it to look, and it took us a lot of time putting together the script of what we were going to say in our video, our call to action video.
Mhm. And your about page is just brilliant now. With what incredible storytelling. It used to
Mm-hmm.
just be here's our team. And now it's a compelling story. Like, this makes me want to hire you guys.
Yeah, no, it's been a fun ride this past year. It really has.
Yeah,
We've done a lot, and you've opened doors for me. But I'd like to think that I've taken action in this year,
100%.
and
You are a
uh,
massive action taker. I love that about you.
you have to be,
Yeah.
and because we've talked about this. I mean, time is finite, um, and at least in this lifetime, this is the lifetime I'm living now, and I want to make the very most of this lifetime I'm living now.
Yeah.
Um, and you have to take action.
Hmm.
And that's for any listener who's listening to the podcast. Take action. Don't worry so much about the theory, and whatever opportunities arise. Make sure when they do arise, you take action.
Yeah. And then, as Tony Robbins says, massive action.
Yeah.
So an example of that, and I think this relates back to what we were talking about earlier about the Malden Mills factory. When you take massive action, and instead of just having an about page that's compelling and valuable and informative, you really honored your father, buddy. And it's like you have a virtual tribute wall on your website now, and it's beautiful. And you showed it to your dad, and like, one of the 10 commandments is to honor your mother and father. And you did
Mhm.
something above and beyond. It's not just a good work to, it's like you operate in the land of miracles, not just the land of good works. And it's just so inspiring to see uh, you do that and be that in the world.
Yeah.
So I know that
And Jay,
I'm sure that your dad feels so much love, respect, honor, um, from
and
the
Jay,
website.
Jay does too. I mean, when I showed him that video, I mean, he was so proud. He was proud
Hmm.
to be our family. I went so one funny story quickly on Jay when he was first getting started before he became Jay Abraham. He only has a high school education, didn't go to college, and he was living in Indianapolis and decided to move to Southern California, start fresh somewhere. But he had no furniture to furnish his apartment in Southern California. And my dad gave him some of the furniture in his house. And Jay, to this day, makes such a big deal about it and says, "Brandon, I'll do anything for you. Your dad gave me his used furniture." um, and he is just he's always been in my corner, and it was neat to be able to share that tribute video with Jay too, because he's always been an admirer of my dad, just like I am. Um, but I mean, yeah, that piece, I spent more time on putting together that video, that tribute video, than I did anything else on that website, because I knew that that was the heart of our firm, and that was the heart of our story. was my dad in 1963 becoming a licensed attorney and representing the little guy, the victim of negligence, and never stop doing exactly that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I'm really so impressed with you and how you show up in the world. And so, if there were any particular tactics that you wanted to uh, point out that have been especially um effective, maybe with SEO or with social or with link building or with a conversion, anything
I
else? Like
mean,
what would be
just
some cool tactics? Because I know people love tools, tips, and tactics.
creating remarkable content.
Yeah.
I know it sounds uh, easy, but it's not. Creating remarkable content.
Yeah, and just to um, piggyback on that and say that I learned many years ago from Seth Godin, the definition of remarkable is very simple. It's worthy of remark. Yeah. So if that's your lighthouse of what you're uh, looking to do, then you're going to have a much better user experience, and you're going to be much more compelling. You're going to have a better outcome for your firm and for your clients, and it's just
Yeah,
so simple.
yeah, and don't do spammy bullshit. Don't do black hat tactics that's going to get you penalized. Don't do it. Just do it ethically. Do it with integrity, and do it the right way, and work hard on creating that remarkable content.
Yeah.
And that's really the best advice I could give.
Yeah. One thing I always recommend is if you can't show this to a Google engineer what you're doing,
Mhm.
then you shouldn't be doing it.
No, no. I learned that very early into our relationship and partnership. That's just not the prudent way to sustain success in SEO. Um, and we like don't do like the scholarship link building uh, campaigns, and um, don't try to garner backlinks to sites that you have no business being backlinked to.
Yeah.
Um,
The link
and
insertion technique of like
yeah,
taking some 5-year-old piece of content that hasn't been touched and on
so when you're
somebody
asking
else's
me
website and turning that into a text link to your site. It's so
yeah,
obvious.
when you're asking me about tactics to share, I'm more so giving you tactics not to do,
Yeah.
tactics to avoid to be successful. But obviously, content and high quality content and
Hmm.
uh,
Great storytelling.
great storytelling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you also do want to share your metrics. I mean, you want to share your analytics, and you want to share, uh, you know, that's what Jay has pitched to me is you need to show them why you with your actual um, results in previous instances, in previous cases, case studies.
Right. So impact
Um,
metrics, it's not just about testimonials as social proof. Impact metrics are a critical aspect of your social proof. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
And
yeah,
so many websites, homepages have throwaway impact metrics that mean nothing. It's just get
exactly,
to the
yeah,
point of what the the client or the prospect cares about. Do they really care how many different industries you've served? Or is it really about how many multi-million dollar cases you've won? Or like it's not client served, it's cases won as an example, and or
Mm,
number of multi-million dollar settlements. Something that really stands apart from everything else.
yeah. And having comparisons between what the insurance companies offered versus what you ultimately got,
Yeah,
um, by hiring us. Um,
right. And a
and
case study is so much more than just a testimonial. So if you can have a case study that shows the situation and the problem that you faced and or the challenge and what um, uh, yeah, just kind of laid out everything about that case that was important for the reader to understand, and then your approach and what you were able to achieve for the client. That's so much more meaningful than just here's a testimonial quote from a happy client or a
right.
satisfied client.
And that's why I'm so excited to share this book with the world, because there's so many client stories and case studies where we go into the details and nitty gritties of how these insurance company treated them at every stage of their case, and how we ultimately got full justice
Hmm.
at the end of every one of those cases. And it's a long fight in every single one of those cases.
Yeah.
But that's a good segue to talk about the book that you inspired me to
Hmm.
write. Um,
Well, the book
because
was
I mean,
always in you.
yeah. But that was one thing that you helped me take action on, um,
Yeah.
and I'm thrilled to share it with the world. And it's been a process. I'm sure you can relate to it. Putting together a book that people have been reading almost for decades now
Hmm.
in your industry. That's an international bestseller.
It's a
Um,
labor of love, and
mhm,
it's not about the the business benefits. It's about the ripple effect, and that's I
mhm,
think, and I know that's what you're after. And um, I'm so glad that you got such a great partnership going with Birthright Books to get that book out of your head, out of your heart, and
mhm,
into print. So
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's um, likely going to publish in late January. Um, so we're just at the final stages now. It's been a lot of work, and Marlene has been great. And um, a lot of the people that we've spoke with who have shared testimonials, they've been great, and they've had a chance to look at the first few chapters and have really loved the story that we've told, and where we developed our empathy in our family and where it all comes from, and understanding that. And I don't want to give too much away, but
Yep, got to read the book.
exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. And then yeah, we did something a little out of the ordinary. We don't normally take on uh, social media clients, but in your case, we did. Do you want to share a little bit of background around that?
Yeah, I tried to do the TikTok thing. I'm I was always open to trying anything, but TikTok was one thing that I wasn't as comfortable doing.
Yeah, it's pretty out there,
But
isn't
I
it?
mean, yeah, it is. But no, our social strategy has been great, and it's not cookie cutter at all. It's remarkable content. It also goes back to remarkable content. It's remarkable content. It's content that is getting views. It's getting likes. Um, it's gaining us followers, um, and we're not pushing 5 posts a week on Facebook. That's half of it's junk. It's 2 posts a week, and it's very high quality content that's meaningful content, that's remarkable content.
Right. So quality over
And
quantity.
yes, quality over quantity, and just telling the client story more, showing the client more. We weren't doing that. We were talking about us the whole time, and we got to stop doing that as lawyers. It's not about us;
Hmm.
it's about the client. And you need to feel their pain. You need to feel what they're going through. You need to step in their shoes and live their life. It's almost like psychodrama. You need to be them and imagine that pain, that hurt that they're feeling, and that sense of anger that they feel when they get their first settlement offer from an insurance company, um, and that sense that the offense that they must take, and really speak to them, and then have past clients speak to them and say that this past client was you, and then they trusted us, and then we delivered justice. But don't say, "Hey, I'm the best lawyer in America, and I'm, you know, I'm Buddy Yosha, and I've been in Best Lawyers since 1983." No one really cares. No one really cares about the accolade, and that's what you see on all these websites for personal injury lawyers, all these different awards and accolades, but you don't see the client.
Hmm.
And that's one thing. Like with Nora's case, we are excited. We've been working on it for several months now, but the social team with Net Concepts and Courtney has put together an amazing package of posts related to Nora's Law. And we did that intentionally because we wanted to push it at the right time. And we just recently went on television and started our campaign to make that push. But it's a lot of thought involved in the content that we're creating. And it's not AI that's writing our content or writing our posts. It's a human being who's taking the time to really put the thought into it, and it's worked out great. It's really helped. I mean, it's sending those signals to Google, and it's helped our presence for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you had to sum up in just if you had to sum up in just a minute or two what our listener would need to get out of this episode, maybe that you haven't already stated, and some actions to take, what would it be?
Hmm. I would tell the viewer to not worry as much about the initial price up front for SEO services and the cost up front, and not try to nickel and dime your way through it, and realize that this is an investment that is a long-term investment, but it's an investment that you will be glad you took. If you do it the right way, you find the right partner, and you find someone that you trust, and someone who truly treats your business like it's their business. Um, I found that with Net Concepts. I found that with you. I'm grateful for that. I'm sure there's a few others out there, but it really is about finding someone you can trust, and who has your best interest in mind, and not, I mean, realizing that it's got to be a big part of your budget. It's got to be a big part of your marketing budget. I would say it needs to be 25-30% of your revenue needs to be dedicated to growing and expanding even further. And you can't be cheap about it. It's an investment, and um, it's not something that you want to put off because your competitors are they're establishing themselves at the top of that landscape, and it's going to be harder for you to climb the longer you wait.
Mm.
So get into the arena and start competing with them, because that is the future of marketing. And it's not the future; it's the present of marketing.
Yeah. But you're always thinking ahead and skating to where the puck is going to be. Yeah, I see that
Exactly.
in pretty much everything that you do. You're taking that long view and that strategic, thoughtful view of where things are going and not just where things are
Yeah. I've had a lot of fun this morning. This has been
at.
great.
Me too. Me too. This is awesome, and I'm excited for the episode to air. So, again, for our listener to check out your website, your book, and all that, we'll put all the links in the show notes for this episode. It's yoshalawfirm.com, and we'll put your Instagram in there as well for them to take a look at, and the Nora's Law website, and the book. Yep,
Norrislaw.com.
and the book on Amazon. We'll link to that as well. Yeah, you're an amazing guy, and keep up the great work you do in the world, and continue being the mensch that you are.
No, thank you so much, Stephan, and thank you for being my partner, my friend, and my mentor, and just being an incredible human being. And it's been a pleasure working with you the past year, and I envision working with you for many years to come.
Oh, thank you. Me too. And it's just a wonderful love fest. Our our listeners are like, okay, come on, cut it
Yeah,
out.
it's
Okay,
okay.
well, thank you, listener, for being a supporter of the show, and for rooting for me and for my guests throughout, the time that you've been a listener or viewer. Thank you for your support, and get out there and be a light in the world. We'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.